to everyone here tonight, to the WASMA alumni, to the staff and guests. My name is Michelle Keegan. I'm on the Alumni Council. I'm the Vice President. I also work at Arose as a Program Director and a consultant at State Advisory. And tonight I'll be your MC. So it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the WA School of Mines Alumni Resources, Innovation and Collaboration event. And the presentation tonight is from a pretty amazing panel made up from the Electric Mine Consortium, which has been running for the last 18 months. The panel includes those from State Advisory, South Evolution, we have Mine and Parenti. So firstly, I just want to run through a little bit of housekeeping. So in the unlikely event of an emergency and we do have to evacuate, there are stairs apparently behind the but the event is sponsored by collective donations made over the course of 2021, and those include that from Curtin, of which we have an MOU in place with that helps fund the way we organise the Alumni Council during the course of the year, but also two of our key sponsors, which have been with us actually for a long time, being Northern Star and Sandbeck. Bit of a plug out there for future sponsorship. But before I welcome the team to the stage, I just want to give you a quick overview of what the alumni has been up to in the last few months, just to give some context to what we're doing tonight and also to our future events. So we've got quite a few subcommittees in place now under the Alumni Council and pretty well filled with some amazing resources, including Carl, who's running the events subcommittee here tonight, and a number of others around the room. So the subcommittee's been working pretty closely together to review our brand, to review our strategy, which we do on an annual basis, creating a new website, all of which helps to contribute for us to connect to the industry and to the university and to everyone, the alumni. So as part of the connection, we see that the resources in industry collaboration nights, or RIC nights, are really a critical piece of highlighting the work that's happening in industry and leading the way. So by doing this, it helps university to hear what's important in the industry for future research. But it's also a great opportunity, we think, to collaborate, and it really is fantastic showing the people here tonight. So the RIC nights are actually planned to be every 2 months, so the next one's happening in April. Got a list of events, but can't actually announce who that panel is or the company right at this stage, but keep a look out on our website. And that event, plus the rest of the calendar events, which is being finalised now, will be up there. So to that end, I'd now like to introduce our panel, headed up by Maddie Ratcliffe, who is the Program Manager at the Electric Mine Consortium. Good to see you right here for you. And the I'll actually get Maddie to introduce the rest of the panel, but if the rest of you want to come up. So let's quickly introduce and Maddie can continue. Simon Maddie, who's chairing tonight, we've got Paul Library from Pinko and Jade Webb from South 32. So they're all part of the consortium, and I guess tonight they'll talk about what's happening in the consortium, which is a bit of a showcase of the report that was just launched today. So please, maybe just clap your hands and welcome.
Yeah, sure. Extra chair for.
Thanks everyone for coming tonight. Might just start with a little bit of context on the Electric Mine Consortium. So is Michelle going to do the slides? So as Michelle said, the EMC has been operating for the last 18 months. It kicked off through a research project that we at State of Play were commissioned to do through the FBI CRC about 2 years ago. We ran a bunch of industry workshops with a number of different mining companies throughout the industry. We ran a big survey and did an interview process and wrote our first report on electrification. From that, a number of the companies that were involved, the genesis of my consortium. So, next slide, Michelle. Since then, the consortium membership has expanded significantly. So we're now up to about 20 companies, 8 of those being mining companies. Most of them are mid-tier gold or precious metal based metal companies driven by the imperative to get to zero carbon. Next slide. We established the vision pretty early and the ambition up front, and it hasn't really wavered in the last 18 months. So for the ambition, so those top 4 points: resolving the technology choices, shaping the supplier ecosystem, influencing policymakers, and communicating the business case. We've had a heavy focus on that first point over the last 18 months, and it's starting to expand in the others. In terms of the vision, the Electric Mine Consortium started out with the main focus being, and the language, I guess, around electrification. But you can see this vision and a lot of the activities that we've been up to over the last probably 6 months, it's definitely expanded to more of a zero carbon focus rather than just mine electrification. So just a little bit broader. Next slide, sure. So the work the consortium does is split up into working groups and enabling groups. The working groups are these 6 here, which were selected by the participants. And the reasoning behind that is that if we believe if each of these 6 challenges were solved, then full mine electrification can be unlocked. So the structure of these is they're member led, so each mining company leads one of these areas with a lot of knowledge sharing and transfer. Whilst one mining company might be the lead, there's a number of representatives from each of the member and partner companies that work on this and their different initiatives. Next slide. We've also got 6 enabling groups. So these are support mechanisms for the more technical groups. They might not necessarily alone deliver full mine electrification, but in support of those technical groups, we believe, they play a pivotal role. Next one. Cool. So enough of the context, might jump to the panel. Jade, Paul, and Martin. No, jump in.
Go that way.
Sorry, Martin.
No.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Go forward.
I'll move. Highly coordinated, clearly.
All good. So, given that context, Jade, I might throw to you first. Yourselves at South 32 have been one of the founding members of the EMC. What do you think are the big learnings that have emerged for yourself over the last 18 months? What's moved fast? Has anything moved faster than expected? What are the big kind of takeaways that you've had?
So the biggest learning for me personally has really been about a mindset change. So as a mining engineer, and I had quite a significant contracting background, that's really related to, safe, reliable delivery of services on time and on budget. So talking about innovation is a really difficult space to move into. And so my own learning was really that the more I learnt, the less risk averse I became on the information that is available. So the mindset change and the collaboration that has fast-tracked through all of the engagements with either the supplier companies or like-minded companies has really been quite staggering on how fast and how much we've learned shared. So I think that moved really fast because of, COVID's got a lot to answer for, but the virtual platforms and talking on Teams, we didn't all need to have meetings face-to-face for everything, although some of them were possible and some of them are more beneficial. But additionally, not waiting for people to come to your town and have a meeting has meant that we've had a lot more engagements virtually that have fast-tracked that learning. So the biggest change that also occurred for me in South 32 is really about the climate change commitment. So South 32 have published that we are halving our operational commitments by 2035. And so, as we progress that journey to 2050, we've now got firm commitments, and that's meant, as our project in Arizona, which has just recently been published, the PFS to be complete, has meant that our electrification and the whole of picture electrification story really has become more important, sooner. So that's what's, I guess, been my personal learning and also what's important for the company.
Shane. On that, Martin, Evolution were in a slightly different position. They came in a bit, you guys came in a bit later, but we've been in for about 9 months. One of the things you first said was that you wanted to join this consortium to help learn faster, get up to speed, position and move faster in your company decarbonisation efforts. How do you think the consortium has helped you achieve that?
Good evening, everyone. I can't actually see anyone out there. I can only see the stage, but I'm sure it's chockers full of current and future mining professionals. But good evening to you all. That's a really good question, Maddie. And as we've come together, it's really been a collective power and sharing information between all these companies that have come together under the EMC banner. There's multiple of us on the same journey. Jade, myself, we're all sort of pushing down the same direction. We can come together and share ideas. So that's really been quite beneficial there. And also sharing of information. At the moment, over in Red Lake, we have some underground battery electric equipment going to trial. We made a business decision just to launch straight into that. There's going to be some early learnings from that. I'm sure there's going to be some mistakes potentially made, but there's other trials also coming up within the consortium. So each preceding trial is going to feed into the next one, and we're going to have a real acceleration of learning there. So that's going to be really beneficial for all the party members. So that's really where it's all coming from there. That's going to be the acceleration there, that collective effort. We don't all need to do the same thing. We can learn from each other and move on. It's just a continuous improvement process.
Fun.
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, I think it's the realization for me as well has been that it's such a big challenge as well. So all of these companies coming together, I don't know how quickly you would have solved it, or we will solve it by ourselves. So the sort of fast tracking of learnings, as Martin was saying, so if 5 companies are trying 5 different LVs, and then we're kind of sharing that information across the member companies and then out into the community the mining industry, I think that's going to really enhance the sort of learnings for the group.
Thanks, Paul. Paul, you're in a bit of a unique position being the only contractor in the consortium. With electrification being a bit of a rare trifecta that hits, the environment, people, and also operating costs. Can you tell us a bit more from your perspective how you value it and how you're you expect things to change from a contractor perspective in the future?
Yeah, I was thinking about this today. So I think it's everyone's probably in agreement that you said it's the environment factor. So we're dropping our CO2 or lowering our emissions. The safety aspect. So diesel particulates, people underground, less noise, less heat. Yeah, so that those two of the trifecta, I think everyone's probably in agreement that it's a good thing. The tricky one that is the financials, because no one's got their hands on these. We've got 20 years of operating experience on trucks, loaders, LVs, all diesel, 20 years of total cost of ownership. So we know to the day when something's going to break and how much it's going to cost for us to fix it. So I think the real challenge is everyone's in agreement on the first two, but we all know that financial piece is the really tricky piece. So not saying that everyone needs to share their cost models and their finances, but really that the learnings that we get from those shared trials and the shared sort of knowledge around that, I think is really going to be one of the things that lets us change in the future.
Have you found it difficult to kind of communicate the business case for electric equipment internally, given those kind of cost challenges?
Yeah, 100%, because at the moment it doesn't make sense. So that's the tricky part about it at the moment, is that these things are expensive and we're sort of hanging our hat on maintenance efficiencies compared to operating cost, or these sort of unknowns that are out in the future. Everyone says electric engines and electric motors are more efficient, less maintenance, but we haven't actually got our hands on them and used them for 10 years to really figure out what this is. So once we start doing these trials, once we start sharing this information, and once we sort of get to that point where we're comfortable, and the cost also comes down, which it inevitably will with batteries and more people in the industry, I think we'll be in a much better space.
And I'd just add, Maddie, like some of those business cases do stack up on the assumptions that you're making, and that's where the risk aversion comes in from a product delivery or service delivery or production delivery is a concern. So it's about proving those assumptions, and that's the point of rapidly trialling and putting forward these trials right now, is to create that awareness and that knowledge for people to base those assumptions on in the future. Somebody's got to do it.
Martin, you've been one of the leaders of the vehicle work streams, and you've done a pretty extensive discovery process with regards to the heavy and surface equipment. Can you share anything you see that's coming out of that? What projects are happening around the world? If there's any interesting emerging technology trends?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, you'll notice there's a lot of trials and tests going on in Australia, but they're all, as you probably noticed, underground, or if you haven't, I'm sort of telling you now that it's mostly underground, because it's been a big sort of market gap there between what's becoming out available from the major OEMs. So we're seeing a lot of heavy rock equipment and the likes like that. But in terms of the majors for surface haulage, there's nothing there yet. We've seen a few little players overseas in Europe, and there's a Chinese company too, but nothing's coming to Australian shores anytime soon. So you're sort of seeing a bit of interest being generated within Australian shores. There's some other challenges going on. And there's obvious reasons why this is the case. We were talking sort of 220 tonne haul trucks. It's a completely different story to a 40 tonne truck. It's that energy density constraint there. But the market's demand is pushing that, and OEMs are sort of trying to close that gap there, and they're working on all their equipment as we sort of speak, hopefully coming something soon. But this market gap has made us sort of look internally, domestic markets, and what else we can do in the meanwhile. So under the EMC banner, we've teamed up with a company in Perth, Switch Mining Technologies, and we're looking to pull the diesel engine out of a CAT 777 truck, and we're going to build our own there in this partnership and put it out to trial out in the Kalgoorlie region. So that's an exciting project that's been fostered underneath the EMC. Some of the other interesting things that are coming up is what we're identifying as gaps of what we thought. We're seeing this with like electrical infrastructure, also just the ability to supply much power, and also skills too. We've all got our graduate programs coming up, and Evolutions kicks off this month. We typically go for things like mining engineers, geos, metallurgists, surveyors. But as we sort of move to the future, and this is just not electrification specific, but just generally technology advancement, we're going to see a lot more need for other things, data analytics, programming, robotics, all specialty technicians and engineers in those spaces as well.
Yeah, Jade, on that electrical infrastructure point, you are heading up the working group. It's a pretty key integrating function between the 6 work streams. Each trial kind of needs electrical infrastructure, so you play a pretty important role. What's emerging from your work stream?
So just to start off on why that was important to us. So we're building a new mine in Arizona. There's a lot of considerations, and we saw this stream as the one about how to integrate all of the different pieces of the work stream. So the work streams that were up there before were about mine design, energy storage, heavy haulage, light and auxiliary, and then the charging infrastructure is where we started. But it became much more than just the charge infrastructure. It's really about, so there is a charging unit and a battery that matches a particular piece of equipment, but then there's the electrical reticulation and that power model. So we've got this whole operating model perspective that we really need to consider on how that is actually going to operate differently from a mine site perspective, and this stream kind of brings it together. And then the second big question that people we're all trying to work towards is how is that energy managed differently, and what does that look like? So from a demand perspective on, what power will we draw differently, and how can we manage and optimise that system is really quite a big question to solve and work towards, with lots of complex parts. But it does bring together some different elements of trying to optimise that mine design for the battery and the infrastructure, the charge equipment, and how we can do our best to minimise the amount of changes to a mine and that operating model in order to operate the system effectively. So that's what that challenge is, and the main themes that we saw in that area that people are looking to solve.
Shane, sure how much time we've got left for this one? Yeah, okay, we'll hand over to audience for questions.
Yeah, we'll just share the time.
People that are jumped online, feel free to put any questions in the chat. Ask them on your behalf.
But you're coming from Resolve Mining Solutions. Just a quick one in relation to obviously the carbon zero target and the demand for power is going to come from the electrification of operations. By moving to this electrified system around the place, are we transferring the carbon problem to an industry and potentially systematically using other carbon through industries like power generation? So, for example, by creating a new, very, very high demand operation, people like on 6 or 7 new coal power plants around the corner to fuel the demand for this carbon neutral model. And what considerations are taken for the flow-on impacts of this change, which we can all agree on is necessary for future growth.
I know everyone's looking at me, but
You got the microphone.
I guess there's some big philosophical questions to answer there, and I guess there are some hurdles that need to be overcome. There are industrial revolutions, and there'll also be an electrification revolution prior to settling back into what next and what other fuel cells and what else will generate our equipment in a greener way in the future. So there's a journey to everything, I'm sure of it. I think the main priority there is actually sticking to our decarbonisation strategy, which for South 32 actually starts with some more heavy industry challenges before it does actually start with vehicle fleet replacement change out. So for us, that energy sourcing and solving that is fundamental. It's not the technology area that I work in, but there's certainly people that work in that challenge first. So first and foremost, it comes from solving that challenge of where is the best energy source matched to the use in the industry. And so when you stick to that decarbonisation strategy, you'll solve for that first and hopefully fundamentally provide the right source of energy for the type of decarbonisation project that you're working on. That would be my best answer. If anyone else has got something better.
Yeah, and I'll just say, at Resolve, you do the mining studies. I don't know the exact figures, but it's probably 60% of power is generated through the mill, 20% of power is diesel, and then 20% is everything else maybe that's sort of hanging around the mine. So in this electrification stuff, I guess we're in the fleet replacement, it's that 20% which we're talking about. So the big mining companies, your South 32s, they're really focused on that 60% because that's where you get your bang for your buck in that sort of CO2 emissions reduction space. If you change your powering and your mill requirements and things like that, that's where you really sort of, this is the hard to abate section that we're kind of really stuck in.
We got here. What does the roadmap look like for the moment?
Yeah, I can answer that question. So at the moment, some of the small wins that we've had, some bigger than others, I guess the ones that come to mind is we're hopefully played a role in commissioning a large scale energy storage trial at Goldfields Agnew site. So they're looking to store some of their wind and solar capacity through gravity storage with the company called Energy Vault, looking to trial a 1 megawatt battery over the next 12 months or so. So that would be one of the major projects. In terms of other stuff that has happened, there's been, over 25 vehicle trials and auxiliary equipment trials across the consortium. So we're trying to share as much knowledge as possible through that. We've just had Amazon and Yukon join up to the consortium to help provide and build a data sharing platform so that those learnings and those trial outcomes can be shared and made readily available to all of the other consortium members and partners as if they ran the trial on their own site, which I think is a key kind of value lever for joining the consortium, getting access to all that information. The ambition is still going to remain over the next 12 months and probably beyond. We're probably not looking to expand in terms of those working groups, but more narrow and deliver, I guess. So yeah, there are a few things that come to mind. Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, that's a good one. We've also just finished leading a crowd challenge with Unearthed and Oz Minerals. So they've run a crowd challenge reaching out to simulation providers across the globe who can hopefully try and provide a solution to simulate different case studies for different mine design principles. So with electrification, you may be able to unlock different mine designs that may not be accessible in the past. We expect that mines will look different, so having that ability to model that so that the internal kind of decisions can be made and studies teams can be more confident in those decisions. I think mine design and simulation plays a pretty big role in that.
Everyone's thirsty.
Well, that might be for you, Jade, that question up there.
What?
Are you looking to work with industry on standardisation?
Standardised charging infrastructure.
Yes, absolutely. There's interest to understand where the best path of standardisation is for, I guess, using the best infrastructure that will, I guess, solve the challenge in charging for the majority of the fleet. The only reason kind of travelling down the standardisation path is really to understand or to try and prevent people making regret decisions that, make their technology redundant through changes in either regulation or stipulations or efficiencies. So trying to understand where those standards lie and where the gaps are, I guess, could potentially point you in the direction of where any risks or regret spend could be. So, that's an important consideration, and obviously safety standards. It goes by the by with every decision that we make in our mine site. So, yes, is a short answer.
I'd also say with this group as well, with Martin's Canadian Red Lake picture in the background, American Hermosa project, we're operating at jobs in Africa and North America as well as Australia. I think we're kind of, because all of those are sort of running down different paths as well at the moment a little bit. So with these companies that are involved in the consortium, I think it's good because we've got a cross section across sort of all of the mining industry. So we're hopefully not going to run into too many issues of different standardizations in different countries within the same companies. So we can hopefully knock those out of the park.
It's also good too, we look at something like your phone, everyone's got a different phone and everyone has a different charger, for example. We don't really want to go down this situation where just because you've got slightly different equipment or mixed fleets or something like that, you need two different sets of charging equipment and something like that. So it's all good to be on the same path there. So make things as efficient as possible. There's no point doubling up on something that could be wrapped into one just for the sake of not getting things right, agnostic up front.
Again, folks. Sorry, can you get sick of my voice? Paul, this one's more for you about the comment you just made about standardisation and trying to yourself as well, Martin, with the phones query. Looking back at the involvement of this in the consortium, they're not exactly the mum and dad technology shop in the corner. And this, as we all know, this investment into this tech space is expensive, it's risky. And the reason that many of the suppliers get into this is because there's a potential reward, and the reward's quite great. So from a consortium point of view, with the standardisation of efforts and inclusivity and share information, how effectively as an industry are we going to manage the risk of monopolisation of an ideal or the better technology or better supplier as things develop? Is there things in that space that are being considered? Because I'm call out a sponsor. I mean, with Randy here with Sandvik, I've used Sandvik for most of my career and haven't let me down that I continue to buy Sandvik. And rightfully so, I'll probably have a bias if they put out electric technology to hit them first. But notwithstanding, there may be other suppliers that do the same. So as a consortium, are we going to support obviously all these first movers that are willing to put the risk in, get some support? And secondly, how open are you guys going to be to the endeavours of juniors and smaller businesses trying to push that in the future once we get established the standard?
Yeah, so I think to be honest, at Barminco, we've probably picked whatever's the best at the end of the day. We're a mining contractor, so we're in there to do the job, and whatever operates the best and is the most efficient, give or take. But yeah, in terms of new sort of suppliers, so we're partnering with Zero Automotive, who has some stuff at Oz Minerals. So they're a junior company that's released one battery converted vehicle, and we've signed on for their next 3. And then also with 3ME and BME, so who Goldfields is getting the first battery electric IT conversion through them, and then we're getting 2 more after that. So they're a small company based out of Newcastle at the moment, which is expanding and hopefully going to get bigger and bigger. And they're looking at converting a grader for us as well, because at the moment, some of the major OEMs, such as your Cats, I think they're saying they're converting their own 777 because Cat's not doing them themselves. We're converting an IT and a grader because Cat's not looking into that area, or Volvo's not looking into that area as an area of importance. Not to say that they won't. So I think initially we did quite a big market scan as well. So we spent 3 to 4 months probably just looking and trawling through everything and figuring out what was out there, and sort of landed on a couple of these people, which are now in the consortium, and some of them aren't. And just because you're in the consortium doesn't mean we're not looking at your stuff. That kind of maybe hits on your point a little bit. If somebody's got something out there that's good, I don't think anyone's going to steer clear of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess just in that heavy haulage space, we just talked about an Epiroc trial and the Sandvik trial with Goldfields. So both of the major players, and then everybody else knows there's a fleet of other OEMs that we need to operate an underground mine, and completely different again when Martin was talking about surface haulage. So there is no real monopoly sitting in this consortium. To my view, if they're our two major heavy trials, and we've got both in play at this point in time. Your choice is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm part of the temporary
Get that?
That's you the most.
What excites you the most each rather than consortium?
My aspirations have changed in the 18 months that we've been a part of this consortium. And I believe it's possible, and I believe that there will be mistakes, and I believe that there are challenges to solve. And I'm really proud to be a part of working with a bunch of people who are prepared to put the money in, the time in, and the energy in to make it better. And the industry will benefit from it in the future.
For me personally, it's probably a little bit more personal. So I've been pushing a little bit of a sustainability agenda at Barminco and Parenti for a little while now. So I'm just excited by the fact that we're kind of doing something about it. And there's obviously 10 member companies and OEMs and everyone out there that's sort of doing something about it. Because personally, I just want to see mining, and I don't like it being slagged out by everyone, mining engineer, and just really want to see it be a sustainable industry for the future. So that's kind of what excites me about electrification and sustainability in mining.
Yeah, and similarly to me, for me, what excites me is really seeing mining move out of that stigma of being a dirty industry. It's not necessarily the case, and it's certainly something, if we can get out of, we will, and that's the way we're heading at the moment. So we are sort of going down this path of getting rid of the diesel equipment or whatever it may be. 10 years ago, people would have told you it's not going to be possible. We're seeing massive breakthroughs in technology. And it's just really exciting seeing this stuff really making large advancements, and we'll see some pretty interesting and cool stuff come to into real full production cycles in the next few years. So that's going to be exciting for me, seeing this technology reaching maturity and having full operations. There's a few around the world already are sort of planning to be fully operational with electrified mines. It's just going to be really exciting when those come online and are operating as a fully electrified operation.
And the challenge as well. The challenge is pretty exciting because at the moment it's still a long way to go.
Yeah, for me, I would just say, I haven't been in the mining industry for very long, if you couldn't notice, but I think it's pretty cool to see a bunch of companies all working together towards the same goal. I think one of the benefits of being a facilitator is getting to see that happen. It's pretty organic, the way that these guys speak to each other. I think, an example would be Jade said the other day, if she doesn't know something, and they might not be someone internally that she can kind of reach out to, then she can pick up the phone and call Paul or call Martin. And the way that, these 8 companies work together is, I think, pretty impressive. I haven't seen anything before, so.
It's a pretty good way to close and for you. So, really exciting. So, switch to the panel for I think, and hopefully it's that people know a bit more about harvesting. So there is